Showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Welcome to episode 70 of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name is Chris Hollifield. Welcome to my show. Welcome to the podcast that introduces you to locals, professionals, businesses, just everyday people that are making Salt Lake City what it is today. Thank you so much for joining me. IamSaltLake.com is the website for the podcast. You can go there and find out more information about the show. You can listen to all the previous episodes right there online. Hey, I got a great show for you today. I had the opportunity to sit down with Gavin Sheehan. He's a writer. He does Gavins Underground. He is also the producer of the podcast that Slug magazine does, Soundwaves from the Underground. He does all kinds of things here in Salt Lake City and is a very busy and active person in the community, a great individual that I had the opportunity to sit down and talk to and find out a little bit more about. So hopefully you guys enjoy today's show. If you have any feedback, suggestions for the show, don't be afraid to call the voicemail, 385-202-5926. I'm here twice a week bringing you an episode where you can hopefully learn about somebody that maybe you've never had that opportunity to get to know about before. So without any more talking, let's jump into the conversation that I had with Gavin. Thank you for listening to another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. Just kind of introduce yourself, just that typical introductions, who you are, what it is you do.
Are you rolling now?
We're going.
Oh, yeah, awesome.
Go ahead and start. I mean, I know you're involved with a lot of projects.
Tons of stuff.
I mean, you keep yourself busy. So
yeah, I'm Gavin Sheehan, writer of Gavins Underground at cityweekly.net on their website. And I'm also the office coordinator as of when this is being recorded for Slug magazine. And I produce the podcast that they have called Soundwaves from the Underground.
Okay. So you say when this is being recorded, do you plan on quitting that? Or?
No.
Okay.
I don't know if we should use this or not, but I'm kind of in the process of changing titles, but I have no idea what it's going to be.
Okay. No, I can respect that. That's fine. So Gavin's Underground, I mean, that's kind of been your longest thing that you've done.
Almost 5.5 years.
5.5 years. And I mean, how did that start? What was the idea behind starting that blog?
The process behind it came about, for years I've been trying to get on the producer staff at 2 News. And essentially, you don't hire writers in Utah because there's no WGA here. There's no format for it. Producers write and put together the shows on KUTV, much like they do at every other station. Uh-huh. So I kept trying to get on that staff. And about November 2007, I got the idea of let's do a video game thing.
Okay.
This is the year when essentially China was poisoning kids with lead in toys.
Good year.
Yeah, I know. So I said, hey, you know what? Video games, they just run discs. We got the Wii coming out. We got the not the N64. God, I must be drunk today. The PS3 was on the way out. Xbox 360 was kind of still new. So I just basically said, hey, let's do a video game segment and show everybody what video games they can get for Christmas this year. Family-friendly stuff all the way up to like the new Halo that was on the way. Kind of demonstrate what you could do with the Wii and the new Rock Band, which nobody had seen yet.
Okay. So you were presenting this to Channel 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they accepted it. I had the web producer at the time was behind it, as well as Mary Nichols, who was a big help at the time. And I just pitched it out, and the news director said, sure, let's do it. What could really go wrong? And they liked the segment so much when it went on the air. We recorded the anchors playing games, and I designed WWF wrestlers off of them at the time.
Okay.
Just did one little thing in the morning. They liked it so much, carried it over to the afternoon show. Essentially what they did was they opened up a blog on the website and said, parents have questions. Answer.
Write about it.
Exactly.
Okay.
I kind of knew that was going to die out really quickly because first off, we're not a national station. I don't have game connections, or at least at the time I didn't.
Yeah.
All I knew was what was coming out and what we could do for that time of season. And once that season was over, there really wasn't a demand. And I knew it was going to go away. So I took the opportunity while I could and said, hey, let me run with this in my own direction for a minute and let me show you what I can do. News director didn't have a problem. The blog essentially was on a community page. which at the time there was KUTV, like the main page.
And this was before KUTV was down on Main Street, right?
No. Was
it down on Main Street?
It was down on Main Street.
Okay.
It had a main page, and that had the secondary community page, which was forums and like blog rooms and stuff that nobody paid attention to. Uh-huh. So it was literally the deepest, darkest corner of the website. And in her mind, I'm sure she thought, who cares?
Yeah.
What damage is it going to do? If it's really bad, we'll cancel it in a couple of weeks. Nobody will even know it existed. So that's basically how that started, was just an opportunity at the right time that I got to take advantage of.
So you started the blog on Channel 2, but when did you start actually doing the type of interviews that you do now with Gavins Underground? Was that when it carried over to City Weekly?
No, City Weekly is a little further down the road. I'd started doing it right off the bat.
Okay.
Right as Christmas ended, the first thing I did was a giant Halo tournament that was happening over at the Megaplex.
Okay.
And I just kind of bridged the two, like, well, I'm doing video games, but let me just bridge this into an interview thing. Because I always wanted to do that, just the interaction. I understand narrative and I like narrative when it comes to print, but interview journalism is kind of lost to a degree.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you don't have that, he said this, I said this, he said this, I said this thing anymore. And I think people, sometimes they need that. The closest we have to it is in podcast form, like what we're doing right now. And I kind of said to myself, I need to make it so that whatever they say is what will be on there. Like, no editing, no trickery, no, I'm going to take this little piece out because it doesn't fit well or people will get offended by it. I had to keep it completely as is.
Just very, what they said, no making them sound a certain way. It's
exactly.
Like, hey, this is what the person said. When you were doing video game interviews, when did you start like saying, okay, I want to start interviewing people from the local community, bands, artists?
That was almost immediate.
Immediately as well.
Because I knew the video game thing wasn't going to last. I bridged it over with the Halo thing.
Okay.
But I knew better at the time. And the first thing I did was I went to a Kilby Court show, and Seawolf came to town, and he was playing. Great guy, great musician, terrible interview. But then I just started interviewing all the local acts that were on that show. Never used the Seawolf thing, used the 3 locals, and that's when it just
it's also a process too. You learn as you do each one. And I'm sure, I don't know how many interviews you've done on Gavins Underground. Would you say over 500? Over 1,000?
I'm betting it's near the 1,000, if not over. If you go back, it's from January 1st, 2008 to now, a post every other day.
Is that how often a post comes? Every other day you have an interview.
So one week will be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the next week is Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And that pattern. And that's the way it's been for that entire time. If you take out the Saturday posts, which are just me saying, hey, here's what events are happening, it's all interview for that point on. So I'm sure if I could probably do the math in my head, but I'm somewhere probably above 500, nearing 1,000.
Maybe even 2,000.
Doubt that.
You doubt that. Share the story of what made you go take it over to the City Weekly website from Channel 2.
That was kind of weird in itself because I didn't think I'd end up at City Weekly.
Okay.
My goal was to make a blog for 2 News and become a success at 2 News. And I was becoming a success despite the fact. Like, there are people at 2 News who hated it. And when I say hate it, I mean they thought it was garbage. Like, why the fuck are we wasting our time with this?
On your blog.
On my blog.
Yeah.
What, this space could be going to something else. And my argument was, well, if that space was going to something else, you'd be making it go to something else. Like, it's not like there's a chain of command and 50 people are in charge of this thing. I got it just off of a suggestion. If there was better material to put on there, I would not be on there. So I was doing something right. And I could tell because one of the webmasters liked me enough that they let me look at the numbers.
And you were getting the hits.
I was getting thousands.
Wow.
I couldn't argue. All I could say was, if it was so terrible, you would delete it. You would get rid of everything. Clearly, I'm doing something right. And it stayed that way until our ownership was changed. This is more inside information, but it doesn't really matter. We essentially were bought a couple years ago, I think in 2007, by a company that owned Chrysler, Cerebus.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They formed a little thing called 4 Points Media where they had stations in 4 different states. And then they sold us again to a company called Nexstar, which are the current people who own Channel 4 and fucked up that entire situation. At the time, they said, okay, we're going to change everything. We're going to make KUTV more of a ad-based website, more of an auction-based website, like KSL's Classifieds was starting to turn into.
Yeah.
So KUTV was going away. The KUTV.com website, it was being changed to connecttoutah.com.
Which, I never even been there.
Don't worry, because they got rid of it 2 years later when the ownership changed again and brought back KUTV. That's how fickle this industry is.
Yeah.
But the sign was coming that page was going. And I had, like 6 months earlier, signed on with City Weekly as a freelance writer. I'd been doing a couple music articles under Jamie Gadet.
That was your alias?
No. Jamie Gadet was...
from City Weekly.
Yeah. The former music editor before Dan Nalen came in, and then he was replaced by Austin. She was the one that I first worked with for music. And we had gotten together to have a meeting and basically discuss what I was going to do. And it was the day that I had found out that my blog was basically going to go away. And so we were talking to her, and she was just like, yeah, but you can cover that on your blog if you want. I'm like, well, maybe not. My blog's going away. And she's like, what? And explained the whole situation to her. And she said, go talk to Bill. Go tell Bill this now.
Bill Frost.
Yeah. So set up a meeting with him. We met down at Sam Weller's, what was down there at the time. And you've met Bill.
Oh, well,
you know the conversation.
Yeah.
And he just starts off like, so you're losing your blog, huh? Just got into the discussion and told them what numbers I was getting, told them the kind of schedule, told them how I planned it, because I was doing everything by myself. I had no 2 News connection other than the website. Like, if I didn't have that, I just have a blog on WordPress.
Well, see, why didn't you just do GavinsUnderground.com? Why didn't you want to just do it on your own?
If you're good at something, you deserve the spotlight. That's my opinion.
And so you think by having it under the umbrella of City Weekly, that helps it get noticed maybe a little bit more, I guess?
Absolutely. Okay. I mean, unless you're pulling in advertisers, unless you're a voice like, I would say, Eric Ethington from Pride in Utah, unless you've got that kind of polarizing topic and that kind of stance that just draws people in, whether they love you or not, having your own blog is essentially like having your own journal online without paying.
Remember LiveJournal? Is that still around? Remember LiveJournal?
I don't know.
Did you ever go to Live? Anyway, so you were meeting with Bill. We kind of got off topic.
Yeah.
You were meeting with Bill, and you sold him on the idea, and you brought it over to City Weekly.
I don't know if I really sold him on the idea. I think he kind of said in his own mind, he'll never tell me straight up, I don't think. But I think he knew I was something special compared to the rest of what was over there.
Yeah.
And knowing that they were just going to let it drop and fall through and not do anything with it was a golden opportunity. Because if I was getting that many hits and they weren't going to use it, why not bring all those hits to our website,
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that played out. He talked to a couple people, and I think it came down to, this kid's good. Should we just...
bring him on?
Yeah.
So approximately when did you come over to City Weekly then?
June of 2009.
Okay, so a few years you've been working with them and doing the blog, and I mean you introduce, I mean kind of like what I'm even doing with this show. I mean you bring a lot of people, interview a lot of people that people might not have otherwise heard about.
That's kind of the direction I wanted to take it, because how many stories can you do on people that have already been interviewed? You know what I mean?
Well, and everybody has a different twist to it as well. You might ask different questions than I might ask, or this person over here might ask different questions than this person. But you are right. At the same time, it's still fun to listen to an interview from that,
Exactly. Like, I'm sure
for a certain person in Salt Lake that, we all know about, but it's still fun to hear an interview.
I mean, I've interviewed Pete Ashdown, which was awesome. But at the same time, how many times do you think Pete Ashdown has been interviewed over the years? So it does kind of become a game of who can I introduce people to? Who can I take that people don't have any exposure to or may not even know, or hell, if they just barely started 2 weeks ago, and put them in the spotlight and say, you should be paying attention to this.
Well, I mean, it was great. I mean, when you contacted me about the podcast, I mean, I just barely started the podcast and you were like, hey, want to do an interview with it? And I was just like, I mean, I felt like I was on cloud 9, you know what I mean? It was just like, it's just such an awesome opportunity. And like you said, let them shine, let them get their voice out, make it sound like, hey, you know what? I'm a big deal. I'm doing something really cool in Salt Lake that this guy wants to do an interview with, and I appreciate it.
No problem. I always kind of thought of myself more of the first rocket or the first set of booster rockets on a ship. Like, I can get you into the atmosphere, but then I eventually fall off, and it's up to you to either get into space or crash to the ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you kind of give people that boost to...
Exactly.
Did you go to school? Let's back up a little bit. Did you go to school for any kind of writing?
No.
Or did you just you're just self-taught?
I went out of high school straight into broadcasting. I had started as a gopher at Mad Dog 102.3. Well, go for this, go for that, essentially. Yeah. Like, I would set up like remotes at some car dealership, like break out the speaker, set up the tent, make sure that everything was working, put the prizes on the table, let the DJ do his thing for 4 hours, pack back up, put it back in the station, and then I would essentially go home, sleep, and get up at 7 a.m. for school again.
And this is when you were in high school? Mm-hmm. You're still in high school and you're working for Mad Dog. You're saying, yeah. Wow.
And I eventually moved over to Channel 105.7. This is after I got my diploma and was kind of a DJ, if you can call it that. I was voice tracking, where I would do overnights, but it was recorded during the day, 1 day a week. Like, they would tell me exactly what they were going to play a week from now, and then just tell me where I had to fill in the spots and for how long.
So why didn't you continue in broadcasting? Why didn't you say, okay, I want to go into radio?
No, I did.
Or is that kind of a tough story?
It's not tough. It's just the expectation of what you want to do and the reality of what's there clash heavily, especially when it comes to broadcasting. People keep saying radio is dying and then it just keeps going on. That's not for anything having to do with talent. That's just a bunch of salespeople and owners trying to keep it going as long as they can, using whatever tricks they can. You look inside of it, it's hollow. Like, it is dead. Like, 4 people ran Channel 105.7 while I was there. I remember 5 years earlier, it would take like 15 to 20 people to run a station.
Yeah. Just cutbacks and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So you were just like, okay, my passion isn't here. I don't want to do anything with this.
I just kind of, like, my dad was in radio, and that kind of was an inspiration for it. And I guess it just followed through and in my head later on, but it was nowhere near what he was doing. Like, when he was in it.
Where was he? Where did he do radio at?
He did radio up in Logan. That's where him and my mom met. They were going to Utah State. And he eventually came back down here into Salt Lake, into this market. But he eventually quit due to other reasons. And my mom wanted nothing to do with it. She started in sales, and then she went and became a teacher. So
wow.
Weird little path there.
And then, were you born here in Salt Lake then?
No, I was born in Logan.
Okay, so you were born in Logan. So, so anyways, back to the broadcasting. You decided it wasn't for you. You decided to kind of gear more towards writing, which then that's kind of when you fell into Channel 2. I'm just trying to build the timeline here.
It's a little trickier than that. Basically, I had enough experience to become a board op at another television station.
Okay.
Can't be a talent, but I can put television on the air. I can run the People's Court and put commercials up. And so I got a job at Z24 Television in 2001. That's kind of where I started interacting with Kerry Jackson and Jeff Weiss, because I got to work on the old Sci-Fi Sunday segments.
Oh, nice.
That they used to put in between Enterprise and Deep Space Nine. And I kind of worked my way up to being an editor and a voice talent, because they used to do little weather segments. And before I left, I was officially given the title producer. And I enjoyed the title so much that I wanted to move on. So I put in applications, but I got hired at 2 News as a master control operator, which was essentially the job I got hired before when I joined Z24. So it's failing upward, I guess.
Wow. So you've been involved in pretty much anything and everything. I mean, you know how to make it work behind the scenes pretty much.
I like to always tell people I know the logistics and the mechanics, but I don't have the money to make the gears turn. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So back to the blog. What kind of obstacles? I mean, you're definitely let it out there with your blog. I mean, what kind of obstacles, being a Salt Lake City in Utah, are there any kind of obstacles that you faced, or any kind of repercussions, or any kind of problems? Or
problems? Not so much. There's scoldings once in a while
from like City Weekly or something like that.
Kind of, but not really.
Okay. Or maybe I'm asking bad questions. I don't want to get you in trouble.
No, you're not going to get me in trouble. Or at least I don't think you'll get me in trouble. I don't think they care that much about what I say to a degree.
Well, it's just, I mean, in general, Utah is a conservative place.
Yeah.
For the most part. I mean, Salt Lake City, not so much.
I haven't really knocked on that door as much. Mine's more arts and entertainment.
True.
When Prop 8 was in its prime and was a hot button topic, I covered a lot of stuff like that. I still get emails from people anytime I do anything LGBT related. My favorite was one from a couple years ago. The guy spelled queer Kwear.
Nice.
Yeah.
Was he from Payson?
No idea. It's pop mail addresses. People do everything they can to keep their anonymity because it's easier to be a bully across the internet than it is to say it to my face.
So do you get a lot of hate mail then?
I kind of
occasionally.
Occasionally. It's not like I've made enough enemies to where I should just put a target on my back and say, take aim. But I do get my fair share of people who are like, what the fuck? Who do you think you are? You know?
Well, then you tell them, get your own blog.
I've covered KRCL in various ways, and it always draws ire, no matter what I do. I interviewed eBay. All I got were people bitching and moaning about the new format, how it was.
The new format of eBay?
No. The eBay from KRCL.
Oh, eBay from... Okay, I was thinking eBay, the auction site. Okay. Come on, Chris, get with the program here. You know.
But no, people vented on that. And then I waited a while. I did the heavy metal show that was on there, and people vented again. Did Courtney Blair. People vented again. There's just no winning right there. So sometimes you just have to kind of roll with what you got.
What's been the most rewarding thing doing your the blog and being involved with the community like that?
That's so hard to describe. I guess the idea of having an impact from the shadows. I always like to call fellow writers co-conspirators because that's essentially what we're doing. We're, as you put it, we're in a conservative area. A lot of local entertainment is kind of passed over because either it's your sister's radio station exposing you to music, or it's whatever cable station they're tuned into that's exposing them to culture. People don't really walk outside sometimes and just see what's going on 3 blocks from their house. And so the idea that I can kind of give people who try to do local art and entertainment an extra footing to kind of get exposure to people who normally wouldn't have paid attention, that's kind of rewarding.
Do you read a lot of like many other local blogs then? Do you keep up much with that or not really?
To a degree, but
there's so many out there.
I had to stop. Not for the fact that I would get pissed off or anything like that. More for the fact that I didn't want to end up stealing from people.
And what do you mean stealing? Like stealing?
I think I shouldn't put it like stealing. I think people become influenced by other people's work.
Oh, absolutely.
And I always wanted to stay genuine to what I was doing, and I didn't want to look at somebody else's stuff and say, hey, that looks awesome. I should start doing that. But
don't you think you learn from other people as well? Like maybe techniques or, reading books even. It's just, okay, if you have favorite authors, the way they write, the way their words flow.
Oh, yeah. I check in occasionally to stuff, but for the most part, it's not like I become a diehard fan. Like it's that way with podcasting. Like I'll listen to like The Geek Show. I'll listen to This American Life. I'll listen to your show here. There's various things that everybody does that I could greatly improve on, but I gotta step away to make sure that I'm not like copying it. You gotta have some kind of basis for staying original to what you're doing while improving it.
Absolutely. So speaking of podcasts, you're involved with Soundwaves from the Underground.
Yeah.
With Slug Magazine.
Lead producer.
That was actually your idea, wasn't it? Or that's what I've heard, or share that story a little bit, kind of how that started.
It's a yes and a no to that one.
Okay.
Basically I had been fired from 2 News in late 2010. And the first thing I did was I went across the street to City Weekly, and I went down the street to Slug and told both Jerry and Angela, hey, guess what? I'm free to do whatever. And
before that, you weren't.
No.
When you were at Channel 2, you couldn't do whatever?
Not really. It kind of took up my time. There had been I'm just going to say it, a fucking asshole of a boss who had made sure that if I had worked on my blog at all while I was at 2 News, even when it was with 2 News, he would fire me.
Nice.
So a lot of which was entertaining to me, a guy hated my guts all the way to the end.
Yeah.
So
anyways, you went over to Angela, you went over to City Weekly.
Yeah. And just said, hey, I'm free. I've got 6 months of unemployment that I have to upkeep on, but I'm looking for a job.
Nice.
And it didn't quite work with City Weekly because they didn't have anything open at the time, but Angela did. And she said, I don't have the resources to make it happen just yet, but check back with me in April and let's try and make something happen. Did little pieces here and there for them, did some CD reviews, and the time eventually came. I got hired on as the office coordinator. Took on a lot of responsibilities. Very minor stuff, like trying to describe half of it is just tedious in itself. But the big thing I said when I was looking for a job was, I think we should build a podcast.
You told this to Angela.
To Angela. Without hesitation, her eyes lit up and she just said, great, write it up.
Yeah.
Tell me what you want to do.
Well, I think it's great.
And
I mean, it's needed.
Exactly.
You know.
And within 3 months of me being hired, we launched it.
And how approximately, so how long has Soundwaves been around?
Starting July 2011, so we're coming up on the 2-year marker.
Okay. And how many you've done? You've done about 100 episodes or so, or more than that?
As of right now, I wrote the script for episode 100, and then we record it this Monday.
Okay. And this will probably go up in a couple of days, so it'll probably be up already. And so I mean, how's that been? I mean, did you just kind of teach yourself about podcasting then, or kind of?
Well, that's the thing, and kind of one of the disappointing things about broadcasting. I'd come up, if you total up everything all together, about 9 years of television, add on the 3 of radio, or the 2 of radio. I had 11 years of audio and visual experience under my belt.
Yeah.
That wasn't utilized in the slightest beyond a tiny control room in the basement. So for me, it was very easy to kind of figure out what we needed to do and set the show up. Editing wasn't an issue. I'd already been an editor once. It's just GarageBand.
Yeah.
Just playing with the audio tools in there. So as far as putting the show together tech-wise, wasn't much of an issue. All I had to do was order a microphone. Putting it together, at least the script and the content, that became a cooperative effort. So while I can take credit for pitching the show and saying, let's do this and putting it together, that's only half of it. Like as a team, we kind of decide what content we want to put in there. We pick writers, we pick subjects, and kind of decide as a group how this show flows. Can't even take credit for the name. That was Jeanette Moses, who's now in New York, who came up with Soundwaves from the Underground.
Awesome. Because I love the name. I've always been curious where the name came from, you know?
It was on a whim. Much like my blog name, very much on a whim. You think over and over again, like what you can do to make something clever and witty, and then you just come up with nothing. And then you end up using the thing that somebody just suggests out of the blue, and that's how it becomes the thing that becomes.
So you don't do any of the interviews, though, on the podcast yourself, do you?
Very rarely. I've done 3.
Okay.
But the amount of work that I put in behind it.
Just the editing, the cleaning up, the piecing it together.
Oh, yeah. We like a lot of shows. I don't know how you do yours, but a lot of people I've discovered, they'll fine-tune their microphones and everything and get it like in one recording. We don't really have that luxury. I get paid to do the show, but at the same time, I get paid to do 50 other things. Basically, I'll take an entire day, like 4 or 5 hours worth of time. We send people out with tiny recorders. We record them in our studio, and I sit down and I have to match the audio as best I can, clean it up. I cut out all the ums, heavy breathing, long pauses. I'm sure there's heavy breathing on mine. I can...
Yeah.
There was a hill on the way up to this place. But just kind of... taking everything, cleaning it up as much as possible, and presenting it like you would hear on NPR, because that was kind of the basis for the format. I wanted to put together an NPR type show, but I wanted to make it ours.
Well, it's like the audio version of the magazine, really.
To a degree,
yes. I mean, it really is what it is.
Because you get 3 interviews, you get some events like our daily calendar, and then we have 2 music segments where you're hearing, most of the time, local music, brand new local music at least.
Who did you have on the very first episode? What was that like? How was that like for you?
I can't remember.
Oh, come on, Gavin.
You gotta remember, like...
No, I could. People ask me and I couldn't even... They're like, oh, so who was your favorite person to bring on your show? And I'll have to sit and I'll think and I'll be like, man, that's, you talk to so many people and I'm sure,
your mind becomes, as I've started telling people, it becomes a Rolodex and you start losing cards.
Yeah.
Like after 5.5 years, I couldn't tell you half the people I did in the first year. I can tell you some things I did, but trying to recite my favorites from 2008, not a chance.
So do you set up all the interviews and stuff for the podcast as well then? Is that kind of your job? Or?
To a degree. It's kind of passed around. I do the bulk of it. But then if there's something very specific that someone's passionate about, we let them roll with it, especially if they're on the editorial staff. Astaire Moronio, our managing editor, wanted to talk to the people who did the Mummy segment at the Leonardo. Totally passionate about it. Wanted to do it, set the whole thing up with her, and just rolled with it. And it turned out to be one of our better interviews.
Awesome. And it comes out, you do it once a week, Mondays. Is that when it comes out? Excellent. You can find that at, what's the website for that? I'll put all those on the show notes too, obviously, but what's the website?
It's slugmag, slugmag.com/soundwaves.
Excellent. And you can download it there. You're on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, I think, right? Yeah. I was also going to talk to you you don't play any instruments, do you?
I drum.
Do you drum? Have you ever been in any like local bands? Because I know you're really active in like the local. You're always out and about seeing local bands.
That was the thing when I first started the blog. That was what I gravitated to first. I enjoyed Kilby a lot. Grew up with Kilby. I thought, why not? Let's kind of bring some of what they're doing to light. And from Kilby, that led to Urban, and then Urban led to the Woodshed, and so forth. I had to integrate other parts to it, but the music stuff has kind of become the core because we are what we listen to a degree.
Absolutely.
And I always felt a kindred passion for this city. I mean, a lot of people like to believe we could be the next Motown or the next Portland or the next Seattle. Why not just be Salt Lake City? Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, why do we have to be New York or California or Portland, like you said? It's like, and just be Salt Lake City.
And why do we need a defined sound?
Yeah.
Why do we need to pick a genre?
Yeah.
We don't. I think if you highlight enough of what's good and just get people out and excited about it, you form a scene just on what's there. You don't need a specific sound.
Who are some of your favorite local musicians right
now? Don't make me choose.
Okay, I won't make you choose. Who are some people that you're enjoying? Who are some awesome bands that you've been seeing recently that have just been blowing you away? How about putting those phrases?
Baby Ghosts.
They're good.
Yeah.
They're good. Down out of Provo.
Exactly, yeah. I think a couple in Salt Lake. But two younger girls and then two guys who are in bands already. One of them's from Desert Noises.
Okay.
And you just see him shred on a guitar. It's amazing. I enjoy Polytype out of Provo. They're going to be playing a localized in July.
Oh, excellent.
But that album, as far as 2013 albums, that was one that really kind of took me by surprise.
Great band.
I want to see what they do more, but The Moth and the Flame. I'm naming Provo bands.
Isn't it crazy the music out of Utah County?
Oh, tell me about it.
It's like what's going on down there? What's in the water?
I don't think it's the water. I think it's the culture. And this is a topic I get into a lot of arguments with. Before I say this, it's in no way to insult anybody of faith. I never grew up Mormon, but I knew people who did. And part of being in that household is you learn to play piano.
Absolutely.
And I think what happened over the course of the past decade is the kids who grew up playing the piano learned to play other instruments. So you already have these people who can play hymns like nothing. Okay. So they already know structure and melody, and you just put them on all these various instruments that follow within that same structure, and they understand how scales work. Just give them an opportunity and they can surprise you. And so I think what happened was a lot of those kids grew up seeing what was happening in Salt Lake in the early aughts and said, I can do that. And now Provo with Velour and Muse Music, I might add too, and ABG's around the corner. It's just started exploding.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I lived in Provo, 20 years ago is when I moved to Provo from California. And I mean, there was nothing to do down there. And now I see all of this going on. It's like, gosh, I kind of wish I lived down there right now. You know,
it's the college town. It's the college town we should be.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I know people are going to find that insulting, and they should be insulted.
Yeah. Like, why are we letting Utah County?
I don't think it's even a matter of why are we letting Utah County do it. I think it's a matter of why don't we have our acting gear that we can do it. I mean, Salt Lake has a fantastic scene. Yeah. And none of our musicians should be embarrassed. But at the same time, a lot of our bands fall apart very quickly. A lot of them don't have like the kind of guile for marketing and promotion that some of the Provo bands do. And others just don't have the drive because at some point they have to decide, do I keep trying to play bass in this band that's going nowhere, or should I focus on my job? And they end up picking the job because it's paying. You know, there's a lot of factors in there And I don't know why, but I think just that culture down in Provo of you can do anything you put your mind to is a little more powerful than the kind that's up here.
Do you make it down there very much for shows?
On occasion, yeah.
On occasion. I still haven't been to the Velour yet. Is that a pretty nice place?
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's got I don't know if Corey's still keeping it up, but it's got a little bit of a circus vibe to it, like a sideshow attraction kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You walk in and it does partially feel like a church.
Really?
With a globe up top, a little disco ball. It's got the hardwood floor kind of feel to Urban Lounge and kind of bar set across for a VIP area. But it's a very simplistic stage, very simple lighting, great sound system. Like does wonders for whoever's on there. You can be an acoustic band and hit people in the back who are just coming through the door. Like he knew his stuff. He was an audio engineer in Provo long before he started the venue, and he just knew how to make that place shine. And then you go in there, and even though you've got like an 8-year-old kid standing next to you, there's a little bit of, we're going to give all of our respect to the artist for the next 45 minutes. You're not going to talk. You're not going to stomp. You're not going to,
And do a lot of people make it out to shows? I mean, the show's pretty packed down there.
I would say so.
Because I've seen a few of them. They seem to sell out pretty quick.
Oh, yeah. We shot a thing for Slug with Joshua James' album release show, and it was packed in the room.
Wow.
I was just a gasp. And I'm not taking it away from Joshua. I've watched him come up here and play the stateroom, and the stateroom's maybe 2/3 full. They've got a venue down there that technically could put in just 50 under what the stateroom does, and they pack it all the way to the door.
Well, that could even be a learning thing for us. And I know I'm guilty of it, where it's like on a Friday or Saturday night, or even a weeknight, I got nothing to do. Might as well go check out a show. Go spend the $6-7 somewhere and check out some local bands that maybe you haven't heard of, so.
And that's what I'm going to do. Like, I base what I cover off of my free schedule and literally throw an imaginary dart at the calendar and just say, okay.
So how many live shows do you make it out to probably a week?
I try to do 1 or 2 a week if I can, depending on the schedule that I have and what else I have going on. And I'll at least try and cover 2 a month, like actually cover, like interview the bands and take the photos and post it as part of my blog.
That's right. You get out there with the camera yourself. You don't even have like a photographer follow you around.
No.
You just get your little camera. And
I've had offers from people who are like, if you ever need a photographer, and I'm like, that's great. You want to get paid, don't you? Yes.
And you're like, here, I got $5 in my wallet.
Yeah, I can. And honestly, this is no insult to photographers, but I've discovered that I can shoot just as good a photo on my iPhone as anybody with a $300 professional camera. Why would I pay somebody to follow me around and probably not capture what I want as part of my blog when I can stand there, point and click, and I got what I want?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Besides the music, besides the writing, what are some of your other favorite things about living in Salt Lake? What do you like about the city? I always like to ask the people I talk to.
That's really hard because I really couldn't stand parts of the city until I moved downtown.
And I agree with that. You got to live downtown.
I lived in the Valley, like in West Valley City, like
probably want to slit your throat
to a degree.
Yeah.
When I was living with my parents, it was on the like little border of Magna.
Okay.
So
pretty much in hell.
To a degree.
Yeah.
I was white trash. I'm not going to lie. Me and my friends were white trash living in the middle of a valley.
No, Magna's not that bad. I got 2 Magna listeners. No, I'm just kidding.
Look, I'm not going to deny roots. And then when I moved out and for a while I had my own place, I was living on Redwood Road. It's just strip mall after strip mall.
You got to get downtown.
Exactly.
That's what I tell, especially if you're single, if you want to get out where the excitement is. You got to get downtown.
If you want to be in the center of some kind of culture that isn't defined by how many Del Tacos are near you, you have to kind of live downtown.
Absolutely.
And I like the idea that everything is within walking distance of me, or at least biking distance, or if I need to, I can take a train to it for free.
Uh-huh.
It's nice kind of having everything you would want or need lumped in one little area and have a small town feel, but at the same time you look up and you see like the one Utah building and you realize you're still in a major metropolitan city.
Yeah, it's Salt Lake City's. I really like it. What are some of your favorite like places to eat at? Do you have any like favorite little local eateries that you would recommend maybe?
I'm trying to think of things that don't sound like I'm pandering to people.
No. And I mean, I know you probably have a lot of, some favorite food trucks even. I mean, the food truck scene here is getting really big.
My coworker Stairs got me into vegan food.
Okay.
So I've started really enjoying Bud's Frisch and Vertical Diner.
See, and I haven't been to Bud's yet. And they're right
there.
Right down the road here from me.
It's a small kind of sandwichy shop.
Okay.
But they have other things besides sandwiches and wraps and stuff like that. But, they're only open for a few hours a day just to kind of feed the lunch crowd, and then they're done for the day. Kind of smart to a degree, but I kind of wish at the same time that I could go out at 7 o'clock at night and grab something.
Yeah.
I enjoy Este Pizza.
Oh, who doesn't? Right?
Green Pig Pub has been good. I'm trying to think of what else is in my diet that I need to cut out.
Well, even down to, and I've said this in previous episodes, say somebody was listening and they were coming into town, a place they needed to kind of check out, where would you say, okay, you got to go eat this food. It's good. Or they go to this place, Green Pig, for example. I mean, you go there on a Monday for blues night or something.
Yeah. The three that I would recommend in the weirdest order: the Bayou, for the beer and the food, Takashi for the food and the atmosphere, and then just for the hometown burger experience, Crown Burger.
Oh yeah, you got to get the bacon
pastrami.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
it's been a while, and that I might. Have
I heard years ago an Anthony Bourdain interview. We have the audio from Slug, where somebody was telling him, you should come to Salt Lake. We have this, this, and this, and he told them exactly what was in like funeral potatoes and what was in a Crown Burger. And he was just like, "Dear God, you're gonna give me a heart attack."
Funeral potatoes, Utah's trademark.
That and green Jello, and some dude's fry sauce, depending on who you ask.
What's in the future? What's in store for Gavin? What do you got? Do you got any like projects coming up that you kind of want to share, or anything you want to do with your writing? Do you ever see yourself like becoming like writing books or anything like that?
I'm working on that at the moment.
Are you?
I keep saying that. I'm like every writer in Salt Lake. I have a book in the works.
Do you? What's your like dream book to write? Children's, adult, fantasy? What do you want?
More sci-fi, fantasy kind of stuff. That's what I grew up on. Just kind of Ray Bradbury stuff. And I know people hate the book, but I loved Fahrenheit 451.
Never read it.
Depending on who you ask, you're either very lucky or you're very unfortunate. It's one of those little polarizing books, and I don't even think it's because of the content. I think it's just because of the way it's written and the way it reads. But I enjoyed it a lot. And that kind of stuff, and when I got older, I got into Chuck Palahniuk, who did Fight Club and Choke, and
a lot of great books.
Still read all of his stuff. I wish Haunted was an HBO TV series. If you've ever read that book.
I haven't read that one either.
Just a one and done 24 episode series. It's divided up about these writers who go on a writer's retreat, and they're locked in an old theater. And at some point they decide that the best way to get money and make a name for themselves is to start mutilating each other and saying how the guy tortured them by keeping them there.
Oh, that sounds fantastic.
Really interesting read. That and Rant, which has to do with a little bit of time travel, which I thoroughly enjoyed.
Time travel? Mm-hmm. Or just the concept of time travel, or that book?
Time travel and that book.
So you're probably a Back to the Future fan then?
Of course. even though if Jimmy Martin's listening, I do think that there was a Marty McFly that was killed off as a martyr so that the Marty that came back could continue.
I love it. That's right. He's a big Back to the Future.
He's got the tattoo on the back of his leg. But that Rant book is one of my favorites of all time. It has a great thing where they're playing a game of wrecking cars. Uh-huh. And like one of them, they pick up the lead character. He doesn't know what's going on. What they do is they have these cars that have like lights or a very specific thing on their hood, like a dead deer. And they're fighting each other in rush hour traffic.
Sounds fantastic.
Like running each other off the road. And they're using the traffic helicopter and its reports to figure out who's out of the game.
Well, that sounds fantastic. So do you have like a goal of like when you would like to see a book, or this is just a dream?
When I finish it.
When you finish it.
I put a goal up for myself, and then I realized that goal I can't stick to because the schedule that I have kind of interferes with stuff. And then you get writer's block, or you get into moods where you don't really want to write it. I'm just at the point of it'll be finished when I finish it.
Do you ever just want to like throw the fucking towel in and just say forget it all?
Like everything I'm doing now?
Everything you're doing.
Fuck no.
Never.
No.
Really? You never get frustrated? I mean, honestly.
No.
I mean, there's days I just want to quit this podcast. And there's days I want to just say, you know what? This is stupid.
There's days I want to punch a hole through a wall. I won't deny it.
Yeah.
Or, take a crowbar to someone's head like I'm the Joker. But at the same time, and this is a terrible example to use, but I'm going to use it anyway. I know a guy right now that's working out at Magna Corp, breathing in bleach every day, basically killing himself off because that's the only kind of work he can get. I'm privileged enough, and lucky enough to have the kind of career and job that I do now. I don't want to quit it. Not for that, not for anything else.
You just gave me goosebumps. Seriously.
I understand the term that, the world needs ditch diggers too. Yeah. I don't want to be a ditch digger. I want to do what I love. And if you don't want to do what you love, if you want to resign to doing the only thing that you can do to get by, why are you bothering?
Well, you're definitely an inspiration. And I mean, you do a lot. You do a lot. And I mean, the little that I knew you did or what you did do, it was like, wow, Gavin keeps himself busy. A lot of people can learn from you. A lot of people work those really, horrible jobs. They come home, they sit on the couch and don't do anything else with their life. And it's like, if we would just do a little bit more, we can all go a long ways.
Exactly.
But anything else you want to add before we close out here? Let's get, how can people find you online or
the blog is cityweekly.net/underground. The podcast again is slugmag.com/soundwaves. Blog is every other day. Please read it. And the podcast is every Monday. So please download it.
And Gavins Underground is on Facebook. You have a fan page on there?
Yeah. Just find Gavins Underground. I think it's just Facebook/Gavins Underground.
And I'll try to get all the links. I try to get as many as I can or until I...
The Twitter one's weird. It's missing some vowels because Twitter wasn't smart enough to create longer titles.
Yeah. Do you like Twitter? Are you a fan of Twitter?
I appreciate it for what it's worth.
Yeah. But
I'm kind of in the camp of... I saw one of the more recent episodes of Marin.
I haven't watched that show. Is it good?
Meh. I'm indifferent to it because... I look at parts of Mark's life and I realize that I'm partially like that. And it's depressing. I don't want to, if I want to depress myself, I have other things I can discuss out loud to depress myself rather than look at an example of myself on a screen. But his agent said, he goes, I got, 100,000 hits off that. And his agent, the exact same thing he said was, well, how much did that pay? It's like everybody getting their 15 minutes of fame for saying what they want, but at the same time, what good is it doing?
Yeah.
It serves a purpose, and I understand that. It's kind of fun to play with some people on there. I'll make fun of Radio from Hell on occasion and other stuff that's happening in the city. But for the most part, what it is to show people what's going on. Not really much else after that.
Yeah.
You want my opinion, you should just ask me up front.
And you're out there.
Yeah.
You're not hard to find.
I'm floating around. I'm like mist. I kind of come in, I do my thing, and then I float away.
Well, I like it. Anything else you want to add before we close out here?
Dude, if you want to ask me anything that's been pressing that has nothing to do with what we discussed, feel free. I mean, I'll answer you truthfully right now.
Oh, no, I don't have any other questions. I just was curious if you had anything else you wanted to add.
Yeah.
All right, Gavin, thank you so much for sitting down.
Thanks, dude.
And talking.
Keep doing this, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Don't give up.
Thank you.
We need a network of podcasts. It can't just be us, Geek Show, and whatever else the Radio from Hell staff creates. Yeah. We need more podcasts.
Thank you. Alrighty, many thanks goes out to Gavin for coming on the show and sharing his story with the rest of you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed sitting down and talking with him. Again, head on over to the website, iamsaltlake.com/episode 70. That's where you can find all the links to connect with him and check out Soundwaves from the Underground, another great podcast here from Salt Lake City, Utah. Check that out. Listen to it. Subscribe to it. iamsaltlake.com, like I mentioned at the beginning, is the website. There's links for iTunes, Stitcher Radio. We're also on the Mediocre Radio Network. That can be found at mediocreradionetwork.com. So make sure you're checking that site out. A lot of great podcasts there. Leave us a review, rating, the whole 9 yards there in iTunes. It's very much appreciated. Helps out with the show. helps us get exposed to more people, and more people listen to the show. And I cannot thank you enough for those of you that have left reviews there. Also, email iamsaltlake@gmail.com. Drop me an email. I love to hear from the listeners, as well as voicemail 385-202-5926. You can also find us on Twitter at @IamSaltLake. So connect with me. And like I mentioned, I'm here twice a week introducing you to somebody else who's doing something really cool here in the Salt Lake City area that I believe is making the area just a little bit better. So until then, thank you very much for listening to episode 70 of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. You guys have a good day, a good evening, and we will talk to you later.